Welcome to the 7.2 notes video. On the front side, we have already taken notes and I have another link to a video for the front half. On the front half, we were talking about how to simplify rationals. It basically involves factoring the numerator and the denominator and then crossing out common factors or factors that show up on the top and bottom. One small reminder is that factors get multiplied. So we can only cross off things that are being multiplied on the top and the bottom. So for example, right here, this was 6 times k minus 6, and this would technically be 1 times k minus 6. So that whole thing can cancel out together. What's not okay is if you just want to cross out like these k's here in the beginning. That doesn't work that way. What we're going to be talking about today is how to multiply. And on multiplying, it's kind of the same way. You're going to factor and simplify first, and then you're going to kind of put the numerators and denominators together. And so what I'm going to do is simplify each fraction on its own and then put them together. So 6 over 2 can become 3. These x squareds actually can cancel because there's no addition or subtraction. And this is just going to become y to the first. Then over here, 10 over 18, I can divide those both by 2, which will make it 5 over 9. And then there's only one x on here. It's x to the third, so it gets to stay where it's at. And we have y to the fourth over y squared. Subtract those exponents. 4 minus 2 is 2. And then what we're going to do is multiply the numerators together and multiply the denominators together. So since this one doesn't have 1 anymore, I'm going to go ahead and put a 1 down there. That means that on top, I've got 3 times 5, which is 15. X to the third. And y to the first times y squared is y cubed over 9. At the very end, go ahead and double check that there's nothing else you can simplify. And I can actually divide 15 and 9 by 3, which would make this 5x to the third y to the third over 3. Okay, now let's start one that has a little bit more factoring. So we're going to factor the top and the bottom part of the left fraction first. For the top part, I only have 2 things, and this is not a difference of squares, so I am simply looking for a greatest common factor, which happens to be 4x. So I put that 4x outside the parentheses, and I write what's left over once I divide inside. 4x squared divided by 4x is just x. Negative 4x divided by 4x is negative 1. And that's it for the top part. Now let's look at the bottom. So on the bottom part, I have 3 pieces. This probably means I'm looking for something that multiplies to the last and adds to the middle. Before I do that, though, I can divide this whole thing by 2. Like that. Because now I don't have to use the AC method where you do the first times the last and split it in the middle. I can just use the shortcut method because there's no number in front of my x squared anymore. So I need 2 numbers to put into parentheses like this. That 2 stays out front. But my 2 numbers here and here need to multiply to negative 3 and add to 2. That's 3 and negative 1. Then I'm going to come over here and work on this one up here and this one down here. So I'm just kind of leaving this right here for just a second. I'll kind of show you what's going to happen. I need 2 numbers that multiply to negative 6 and add to 1, which is positive 3 and negative 2. And then I need to factor out the bottom part. Once again, I only have 2 things, and it is not a difference of squares. So I'm looking just simply for a GCF, which happens to be 4x. I can divide them both by 4 and an x. 4x squared divided by 4x is x, and 8x divided by 4x is 2. Now, basically what we're going to do is make this one giant fraction like this, and cross out any factors that are on top and bottom. It doesn't matter whether they came from the left side or the right side. So like I see a 4x and a 4x. I see an x minus 1 and an x minus 1. I see an x plus 3 and an x plus 3. And I see an x minus 2 and an x plus 2, but since those aren't exactly the same, those two have to stay in my answer like this. And that is all I have left on the top and the bottom. That's how you multiply. It's just like simplifying, but you get to put the top two together and the bottom two together on the same side. Okay, there is one trick about dividing, and that is we're going to flip the last and multiply. I use the saying, instead of dividing by fractions, flip the last and multiply. Or, dividing by fractions is easy as pie, flip the last and multiply. Okay, so what that means is this part's going to turn into the top, and I'm going to go ahead and factor it with my two numbers that multiply to 15 and add to negative 8, which is negative 3 and negative 5. But now that's going to go to the top of this fraction. That's what it means by flip the last, is turn this into the reciprocal, where this goes to the top and this goes to the bottom. And then for this one, I can divide these both by 8 and an a squared. And I'm going to go ahead and take out negative 8a squared so that this one, the one with the higher exponent, can go first. So negative 8a cubed divided by negative 8a squared is just a. And 24a squared divided by negative 8a squared is negative 3. And then I'm going to factor everything on the left side too. Over here, I just have a GCF on the top, because this is only two things and it's not difference of squares, at least not yet. I can divide them both by 2 and a squared. So 2a squared goes out front. It's already in the right order, so I don't have to worry about it like I did on this bottom one. 2a cubed divided by 2a squared is just a. Negative 12a squared divided by 2a squared is negative 6. And then on the bottom, I have three things again, so I need to find two numbers that multiply to this one and add to this one, which is negative 6 and positive 2. Now, let's start crossing stuff out. A minus 3s, a minus 6s, and a squareds. Again, those are getting multiplied. And then I have my a minus 5 and my a plus 2 left on bottom. But let's talk about 2 divided by negative 8. I can actually divide those both by 2, which leaves me with 1 over negative 4. And there you have it. On the last one, we're going to do the same thing. This is just like multiplying. You just have to reverse the top and bottom of the last fraction, the one that's being divided by. So on the bottom, which is going to become the top, two numbers that multiply to negative 6 and add to 1. That's the same thing we did up here. It was x plus 3 and x minus 2. And on the bottom, I need to take out a greatest common factor because there's only two things and it's not difference of squares, at least not yet. I can divide both of these by 2 and take away an x. 2x squared divided by 2x is x, and 6x divided by 2x is 3. On the left side, you got your 10 on the top. Nothing, you can't factor 10, you just leave it. And then on the bottom, we can take out a 4 between these two. And there you have it. And not quite as much is going to go away this time. Actually, I guess it's about the same. X minus 2's and x plus 3's. Okay, and then right now I have 10 on the top and a 4 times 2x on the bottom, which is 8x. And after you write that, there is a way you can simplify because you can divide both 8, 10 and 8 by 2. And there you have it. Now, the rest of your class period should be spent working on the second half of the 7.2 assignment. It is due tomorrow.